What's up, party people? Hey, what's up? How are you going? Welcome back to the Fresh Podcast. My name is Jaro. This is Nick. And today we have a special guest. He's a great guy. Amazing man of God. You know, he's like, he mentors both of us, and actually Hannah, who's sitting on the couch behind the camera, which she can't see, but she says hi.
Yeah.
And like he's a very accomplished man. Owns a lot of expensive things.
He loves cars.
He loves cars. He loves his music.
Yeah. He sells houses as well.
Yeah. I mean, he was a previous executive pastor of a pretty large church in Perth, and he's sitting in this room today with us to talk about mental health. Yeah.
Topic.
So his name is Jonathan Quay, by the way, or Jonathan Quay,
forgot his
or
name.
John.
Yeah.
That's his name. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, because, you know, John, you've been through, you had experiences. Sorry, this is bad. Okay, this is okay. We know. Okay, we understand the importance of this topic and how serious it is, but we just had a bit of laughter beforehand, so just don't get the wrong message. We don't want to rub you guys the wrong way. But yeah, John has his own experiences with depression, and like we're just gonna unpack that today with him. He's gonna talk about his journey with it and how he's coping with it till today. And just another thing is a disclaimer. If you guys find that if you're watching this and you feel like there's like triggers where it might remind you of a very unpleasant like situation or memory, we advise you to click away from the video just because we care more about your well-being than another view on this video. So yeah, please click away if you're feeling a bit uneasy. But other than that, stay tuned, and hopefully you stay with us throughout the whole conversation. Sorry, did I cut you off again? Nah, bro, I'm passing it on to you.
Well, I mean, the reason why we would just wanted to talk to this topic about you guys about, wow, that was really bad. Let me start again. Woo! All right.
Rewind.
Yeah. So the reason of why we chose to talk about this topic, even if it's really heavy, is because, like we told you guys in the previous episodes, we really want to do a podcast where we can really add value to you guys, the community that watches us, and to us as well.
Yeah.
And John just having kind of just a more first-hand experience with this topic and everything that's going on. We felt that it becomes a lot better when he talks
because
about it.
Because it's easier to come from someone that's experienced it than us, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, more on the sidelines. Like we've seen it, but we haven't really gone through it ourselves personally.
Well, I guess you guys were there when I was going through it. So you also have this lens where you observe it from the outside.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, you guys know, we were youth leaders as well. And like, we've had a lot of experiences helping people like that, but we don't really know what it actually feels like to go through these kind of things. And I guess it's something that a lot of us talk now, and the world's become more aware to talk about as well, for us to kind of just shine some light onto it. And we felt that, why not, let's just talk about it. It may be a really heavy topic, but we'll see where we go, and hopefully you guys get to learn something and hear from someone that is like dealing with it as well, and just from our point of views and what we can do as well. Yeah, cool. Well,
I mean, okay, all right. So I guess adding on to why we want to do this, I just feel like nowadays depression or mental health is, I guess, spoken more of these days, right? It is. And like more awareness is being spread. But at the same time, I guess like the spreading of awareness could be kind of doing a little bit more harm than good, in the sense that people start self-diagnosing themselves with certain mental illnesses, right? Because they have like a symptom. It's like saying, going on Google, like if you feel like a pain in your foot, and then like you go on Google and like, oh yo, you got foot cancer. You're like, man. Just because I got a pain in my foot, I got foot cancer. Like Google doctor isn't reliable enough. You need to go see an actual practicing doctor, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way, I feel like nowadays, I mean, through music, movies, like it's glamorized almost. And I guess it's like kind of popular almost, like e-girls and like e-boys kind of have that goth kind of, nothing wrong with goth, if that's your style, man, respect. But I'm just saying, like, look, the background check, I feel like it comes from more than just an aesthetic. It's more like a lifestyle as well that some people live, right?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I think I just started with a question. Is like, do you guys reckon that, self-diagnosing is like an issue now, or like it's, you know what I mean? Like, is media like behind all that? And like, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Do you want to go first, or do you want?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I definitely think that's a thing. I mean, do you remember that? What's that TV series called? The
13 Reasons Why.
13 Reasons Why. So when 13 Reasons Why first came out, there was actually a significant increase in chatter about suicide and depression and the effects of it, and a lot more kids, I think, used it as almost like an attention grabbing thing. I mean, even Headspace, which is the place that when we were all youth leaders, we used to send kids there for counseling and everything. I mean, even Headspace released a warning saying that, if you are prone to suicide or depression, or if you actually have it, then please try to not let, parents, don't let your kids who are under this kind of age watch this show, because it will heavily influence the way they think, the way they talk, the things that they think are really cool and everything. And, you wouldn't release such a warning if it was like kind of a simple thing. So I think it's definitely a thing, right? Like, where we know as well, our kids, if let's just say, like, we saw this a lot where one of our kids is kind of interested in a person who's a little bit more sad, a little bit more like depressive in their demeanor or negative in their speech. That affects them directly. Like, you can have like a really bright, but we actually saw this, like a really bright kid who's just like, always happy, and then, kind of goes for this girl who's a little bit more, a bit darker, a little bit more into that stuff. And that kid would change his whole demeanor, change the way they dress, change the way they talk, just to kind of fit in, or just to kind of grab the attention of the girls. I think it's a thing. It's legit. It happens.
Yeah, and I think because like when you're so young as well, right? When you just experience such sadness for the first time, it's so overwhelming, and you get so anxious all the time. And because you haven't really experienced just when you hit bottom, you go up again. For them to just get down, and then how they kind of find that help is like they go watch shows to relax, but then the shows add on to that. Then the music, like you say, like adds on to that, about all these sad things. I want to hurt myself, all these things that keep adding on. And because they only get one side of it, they feel like that's it. And then they kind of assume that being sad equals like being depressed, when it shouldn't really be like that. It's not really like that, right? And I think that we saw that so much, like you mentioned, when the show came out back in the day, when we all serving the same youth group, and we see it for friends and people. It's just because there was just a lack of understanding, and it was just kind of a shock, I guess, like for all of us were Asian, and I grew up in Malaysia on Asian culture, for example, and it's like you never really talk about that. When parents say you're sad and stuff, just man up and just keep going, right? Just work through it. Like, or we always get told like, oh, you just keep pushing and things will get better, but you don't really talk about it much, because being sad was just part of like the life cycle, right? You have down times, and then you have good times, and you just keep going in a cycle where you wouldn't really like consider ever, like from, I guess, where I'm from and my culture and background, it's like I would never consider me being depressed. So it was never really in my head. But then once all of this came out, like a couple years ago, I'm like, oh, this is an option now. And if I was a kid back then, I would consider it as well when I went through like really hard times as well.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that like some people don't actually go through it. It's not to say that everyone's attention grabbing. That's definitely not the truth. Right? And in fact, probably a lot of these people who are like trying to grab attention, it's very legitimate. They actually are trying to get attention because they feel that's a real need. It's not, it's not fake. But I think with anything, and they call it pop culture quite literally because it's popular culture. Like with anything that becomes pop culture, pop media, it affects the way that kids, especially, young people who are so just, I guess the word I like to use is malleable, but like they can be shaped and molded so easily. That really affects them. That really, really gets into their heads. And I think this is something that's not talked about enough, but just the kind of music that you listen to, the things, the themes, and the movies that you watch, and the TV shows that you watch. I mean, this kind of stuff. And let's not even talk, I mean, you guys know I'm a churchy, but let's not even talk from that perspective for a bit. Let's just talk about just in terms of influence. We know that it's a thing where if you really like someone, you get influenced by them. If you spend a lot of time around someone, you get influenced by them. That's just a thing. That just happens. For some reason, that's a part of human behavior. Like when you watch a lot of shows of a certain type and you listen to a lot of music of a certain type, you kind of adopt the themes and the things that they talk about. And a lot of the times for a kid, like, I mean, when we listen to certain music and it can be darker and it can be, there's more you guys are like certain like hip hop and rap. No, I'm just on.
No, I understand what
You know
you're
what I mean, though. You know what I'm calling
I get
about.
what you're
Like, you know,
saying,
those. Like,
I'm neutral.
So in case you guys don't know, I
hip-hop
asked
has
these two
light
guys to
you
help
know?
me get into hip hop and like rap music because I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
And part of that journey was discovering some of these old school artists who would talk about some very dark themes, like, you know, about friends getting shot and like the police oppression and everything like that.
Yeah.
And if you're a young guy and you listen to stuff like that, even if you've never been oppressed by the police before, it can make you think like all police are unfair, all police are very mean, all police are
changes
like
your
brutal.
perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When to be honest with you, every single encounter that I've had with a police officer in West Australia has been very, very good.
That's actually the same as me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the amount of times I've been pulled over, right, for driving over the speed limit and stuff like that. Yeah, I've only been found like once out of all those times. These cops are very polite, very good to me. So, but if you haven't and you listen to all this kind of music, it's very easy to just assume, you be antagonistic because all cops are like I hear in my songs or I see in the movies. It adds a filter to you, like it really does. Yeah.
No, and I guess like, you know, when you go through that sad adding on to it becomes very overwhelming. So I guess from your point of view, I mean, we never really asked, but I guess like, how do you start figuring out maybe when you're going through a tough time that it was actually something more, like, for example, you having like depression almost, rather than just being really stressed at that time in your point in your life, being a pastor of such a big church, having everything going on, and then just realizing, maybe it's not just the stress or not just the things, but it's actually more than that. Yeah,
it's a bit crazy because we were just talking about this in the car, but we've never actually talked about this, which I'm a bit sad about because I'm open about it, but I'm happy that this is kind of on your show and on Fresh Produce. But yeah, look, it was a big deal when I was going through it because you guys know me and you guys can testify to this. I'm not one of those people who likes going dark things and talking about that kind of stuff. Like I generally
John's full of bubbles and light.
No, that's not it either. I'm just not a very emotional person. Like I don't really express emotion very easily. I don't cry easily. I don't get upset very easily. I've seen a lot of traumatic things in my life, but like I'm not the kind of guy who just gets kind of depressed or sad easily because of that. You guys know that. So for me, look, it's a big story, and I don't want it to take the whole podcast. But in short, I think it was a build up over a long time. Like I started to notice it one day when I was like, man, I woke up once, and this was 2017. I woke up one day and I was just like, you know what? I really don't want to go to work. I don't want to do anything. I just want to lie down in my bed and stay there for as long as I can. And, I did for a day at a time. And then, that one day would all of a sudden become a week. Like, I'm not feeling it today, so I'm just going to lie down on the couch. I'm just going to not even read a book. I literally would just lie down on the couch, not playing games, not reading, not watching TV. I mean, the TV running, but I'm not watching it. And that used to happen starting around 2016, 2017, or a day at a time. Then it became a week at a time. And the real danger signal for me was I think it was around June 2017. It hit at a month as just a full block for 1 month. And you guys know I'm a very active person. Like I like to be up early. I like to be doing stuff. I like to be working hard. I like to hustle. Like I really, really do. I generally throw myself at whatever job that I've got. And I try to involve myself and sleep late and work hard, But it was very, very uncharacteristic. I think you guys started to notice as well. I'd be on the couch and I'd stay there for 9-10 hours a day, and I wouldn't move. And then I'd just get up to eat, and I'd go back to the couch, and then I'd go to sleep at night. And that happened for 1 full month. So that's like 30 days at a time. And that's when I was like, yeah, something's wrong. Like something's up. That was when I first picked up, like, this is not normal. Like not everyone goes through something like this. I had better get it checked out. And like, I guess, we did talk about it before. A lot of people like to self-diagnose with depression and stuff, which is like, I caution you against it because it's not something, depression's a real thing. Like I'm here telling you it's a thing. It exists. Like I'm not the kind of guy that would go through that stuff, but I did. I really, really did. It hit hard, and I'll explain it more later. But if you genuinely believe you have it, just go online and look for clinical symptoms of depression. Just Google it, like Healthline, Medifax, all these websites will actually go through there are like 7 actual symptoms of depression, and you can see like loss of hunger, appetite, lack of kind of like emotional stimulus. These kind of things are all included in that. I went through that and I was like, man, I'm a good like 6 out of 7 of these. And that's when I was like, you know what, I've got to start taking action. So I went and I talked to the staff team, and I actually went to professional counseling to try and get an opinion. I went to 2 different counselors. One was like a non-Christian kind of secular counselor. I've forgotten his name, Dr. Graham something. And then I went to Kara, which a lot of us know. She's a pastor and she's a counselor as well. And the first counselor basically dropped the news on me, which was quite hard to take. It was like, hey, I think you've got, what they like to call chronic depression, or it's depression that is not based on a situation. It's not because something's happened you get depressed. This is depression because it's kind of wired into your body. Like that's just a thing. You just have to deal with that, and that's kind of sucky, I wouldn't mind if he was like, oh, it's because you're too stressed, so you're going through burnout. I'd be like, cool, like that's, I just take a few months off work. This guy was actually like, no, this is something that we reckon there's no stimulus, there's no trigger, you're experiencing it for no reason. It's something that you may just have to deal with. Like biologically, your body just kind of works that way. And I think as we were talking it through, it just got scarier and scarier because, like, he was like, your mum passed away back in 2008 when you were, still in uni, just entered uni kind of thing. And he's like, I don't think you ever dealt with that properly. And I think that kind of builds up in you and you never processed it and you never grieved. And because of that, it's like these stresses. And then you took a high pressure job where it's like very little output, but a lot of input, like a lot, you're helping a lot of kids, you're listening to a lot of kids, but there's no one really listening to you. And so because of that, it's just building and building and building until one day you just pop. Yeah. Because emotions aren't like fake, right? It's like we don't fake our emotions. They have to go somewhere. If you suppress an emotion, it doesn't just, it just disappears. It goes somewhere, we don't know where, but it goes somewhere, and one day it explodes, and that's what happened. And so I guess that's how I knew, and that's how I realized that, man, it's so out of character. And you guys started to notice as well.
But was this while you were still the youth pastor at the time?
I mean, I think I was exec at the time, so
so it's like just after you left youth, almost
around a year after.
So then I guess what I was curious about is like, because even for times where you felt that, were you like, when even you just didn't do anything, right? Were you sad all the time? Or was there times where actually you just felt normal, but you just didn't feel like doing anything?
Yeah, no, do you know what? I don't think depression can be classified as like every single day is just, sad. Death kind of thing. It's not. Like, there are definitely days that are worse than others where the thoughts become really bad. But I think depression as a whole, like just as a whole kind of disease, a kind of condition, can be summed up in a word. And I think that word would probably be hopelessness. Like, you just feel like when you get up, like, what's the point? Like, there's no point. You kind of wake up and you're just like, what's the point of working? Like, working doesn't do anything. That doesn't do anything.
Cameraman got bedtime again. Well, that's cool.
It's just a general feeling of like, put it like hopelessness, in the sense that you feel like you're in a hole, like and you can't crawl out. Like the walls are slippery, and it's like it's too tall for you to reach, and it's too like squished for you to move, and you literally just feel like, I can't get out, so I might as well just sit here. You know, that's it's a very dark, very like oppressive kind of feeling.
Well, I mean, do you have anything you want to ask, or? Because I guess I have a question while you just think about it. It's just because what I'm curious about is like, sometimes when the whole hopelessness thing that you spoke about, it happens to us a lot sometimes, right? Like when you go through really bad heartbreaks or you go through really tough things, we often feel hopeless for like a week or so, or sometimes even longer if something hits even harder, right? So then how would you differentiate that to what you had? So you kind of know it's more than just the heartbreak.
No, look, I mean, depression is a thing that is situational as well. Like a situation can trigger depression. Like it can. That's actually a thing, and so you do have to watch out for that too. So a lot of the times when people are like, oh, I haven't had very close encounters with depression and stuff. I mean, the chances are you probably have, but just in more of a short term, more of a short term way. It's not really like a long term chronic thing. But a lot of people do experience depression as like a a situational thing. You get dumped by your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and you go through heartbreak. And a lot of the time, if you're not careful and you don't manage or process that properly, and you don't have the right people around you, now we've seen that stuff less than that can push people over the edge. It really can. You hear about suicides that from just a job, you lose a job, and these guys go and commit suicide. So that is a form of depression. I genuinely believe it is, but it's not the same kind that I've been dealing with. So I'm not sure about that sort, because that I was weirdly enough quite like I'm not really like prone to that, because emotionally I was quite like a strong person. So when I go through bad stuff, it's like cool. It doesn't really affect me that much. But this was that's why this was significant, because it really affected me.
And
I mean, like, this is random, but like, do you have any like prescribed medication? What's so funny?
No.
You just said random.
No, just in case it was like not on cue with the story, but
Sure.
I just want to know like if you're on prescribed medication. Or like, what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. Look, the both of the counselors definitely tried to get me to like sorry, Nick just kicked his laptop. Both of the counselors kind of tried to get me to consider prescribed medication, so I come from my degree in university is biomedical science, and I come from a background where I worked in a pharmacy for a few years, and I guess I know that those kind of medications, if you learn to depend on them too much, you can't really kick the habit too easily sometimes. And I was very scared of that, and of course, if we're going to talk about the whole Christian side of things as well, like I just genuinely didn't feel like prompted to go and take the medications or use medication. So I said, I'm going to set a kind of time frame, 2 years, and if I really can't manage this in 2 years, then yes, I'll go down the prescription medication. But it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. Like I wanted to kind of fight through it, and get better or learn how to manage it, as opposed to just flick a switch.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because with my experiences of knowing people that have gone through medication, there's a lot of side effects. Hey?
Yeah.
So it's like it could actually do a lot more worse than good.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll give you other problems to worry about.
Yeah, it does. And look, it's not to say that if you take medications you're weak, or that's definitely not what I'm trying to say. But it's just, it wasn't for me.
Right.
It wasn't the path that I chose to take. But it does have they all have side effects depending on the strength of the medication. Yeah. And for some people, you barely notice, and it's generally just positive. But for some people, they get kind of hooked on it. They get like addicted to it, and it's very difficult to wean yourself off that kind of medication. So I guess if you can do without, then do without, I suppose. I would definitely say do whatever the professionals tell you to do, unless you really are kind of convicted in one way. But the thing for me was I had a lot of people watching me, so if it did get that bad, I would have given in. I would have taken it, because you don't stuff around when you're feeling that way.
Do you think that you are like a good source to kind of choose though, whether you should be taking it or not, because you're the one going through it? So how can you be, I guess, the neutral sense in like whether you should or not? Because obviously for you, like, I think I'm good enough. I mean, we hear so much about that, right? And then all of a sudden, nope.
I mean, I think one of the things was when I was going through this, I was emotionally compromised. So like my emotions were everywhere, just all over the place. Very dark, very like negative, and then kind of happy, and then very dark and negative. But for me, like I'm a rational thinker, so I like to think things through very carefully, and my rational brain wasn't very affected. So I guess when I thought about it rationally, like, should I really go down the track of medications, and like the cost of medications, and not just the but the toll on my body, and then potentially future kind of like, do I get addicted to this stuff? Are there bad side effects? I wasn't really willing rationally to take that risk yet. But obviously, if it got bad, it's not like medications are evil, and I'm definitely not one of those Christians who's like, if you take medication, you don't believe in God. Now, rubbish, absolute rubbish. I do think that medications are a very viable solution for a lot of people, and you should consider it if it's serious enough. Definitely, you should. Yeah.
But I guess it's like, what I'm trying to just play a little devil's advocate. Like in terms of, because for example, for me, I don't like usually asking for help, right? Unless I really need it. It's just it could be a pride thing, maybe. It could be just I just like
major.
Or like I like just trying to fix my own issues first, right? So what if you're someone going through that, and then same thing where I'm just like, nah, I can do this, I can hold along and going, but then it comes to a point where it's just so dangerous that you keep pushing through. It's not good. And what I'm trying to say is like, if you think like that, it could be so dangerous for yourself because
Yes.
you're trying to heal yourself, which is
Yes.
what we've been talking about, right? Trying to deal with it in your own terms, which may not be the most rational thing.
No, yeah,
if,
absolutely.
Like, let's say doctors might recommend
Absolutely.
it. And so,
I think it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
Like, you guys know me and you know that rationally and like thought wise, I'm quite strong and quite like strong willed. So that's why I feel like it was a bit safer for me to say like, look, I'd rather hold off
okay.
for a bit. But if you know yourself and you're one of those people that's like, wow, emotionally you're just out of control and you're thinking really dark thoughts on some days, and then the next day you're kind of happy, but you keep going back to this dark place and you're like, I'm completely out of control, and you're kind of you feel it. You sometimes you just lose the will to live. It's scary. Like, it's scary. Yeah, like it's a very dark place to be. If you're one of those people, definitely consider medication, like because it will help you at least get back your rational mind, where you can think things through properly and not just think with your emotions, because that's very dangerous. I think I was just one of those people who were fortunate enough that I wasn't rationally that compromised. Emotionally I was, but rationally I was still thinking quite clearly. But for some people it's far more acute, like it's far more severe. The drops are just like my drops. I guess it's a bit of a grace. Like, I can kind of see it coming, and then when I see it coming, I prep myself, and then even though it goes down, it's like I'm still there. I like write to myself. I know it sounds crazy, but you write to yourself. It like reminds you of when you were back up there. You know, you do stuff like that, and it keeps you going. And when you get bad, that's what keeps you going, and then you never really bottom out like that. But if you don't do those things, and if you're just very all over, man, the drugs help to regulate those emotions, and it can get you back to a point where you can just figure things out for yourself and think things through for yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess like, do you have?
Oh, I mean, you go.
I was just gonna say, like, following on what you kind of mentioned before, it's just like, so then once you know you have it, right? You've seen professionals and you know it's something you're dealing with. Did it kind of change your whole lifestyle? Because you mentioned like things you write or things that you have to change and put around you to help you deal with it. Because if it wasn't medication, it wasn't that, then obviously there was things in your life that you would have to change. And so then like, I was gonna ask, like, how did you kind of deal with it? What were things that you had to do in your life that changed to make you stable, so you can continue doing everything else?
Hugely. That's the answer. You know, it affected me very drastically, from the way that I worked to the job that I worked eventually. I had to leave pastoral ministry because you can't help people when you're in that kind of state. So I had to learn how to do like a different job. I had to revise, my sleeping schedule was just not cool. It was whack. Some nights I'd sleep 1 hour, some nights I wouldn't sleep, some nights I'd sleep for 13, 14 hours. It just happens like that, and it's just you feel all sorts of different things. Some days you're good to go out and you're good to meet people, and other days you just like, you definitely don't want to. So it affected my lifestyle completely. And I think one of the greatest advices that I was ever given from the counselors, and this was from Kara in particular, was you got to find some semblance of normality. You got to get back to a basic level of normal routine, and you got to fight for that. Like, you really got to be disciplined. So discipline is not something that flies out the window when you start dealing with this. You actually have to be very disciplined to kind of say, I'm going to fight for my sleep, and then you fight for 8 hours a night. And you try and regulate that as much as possible. And then the next one is your eating schedules. I used to eat at like 3 a.m. in the morning. I put on a lot of weight when I was going through this. Like, you used to eat at 4 a.m. in the morning. You get up and just, I'm hungry. And then you'll skip like lunch and dinner. Eating schedules go out the window. But again, the advice is really stick to just being as normal as possible. Keep to the same routine, because I think with a routine you can predict it, and when there's routine in your life, it almost gives you something to do, even when you feel like there's no hope and when there's nothing to do. It keeps you like, okay, I just got to get to the next meal, I just got to get to the next hour of sleep. It just gives you something to do. It gives you almost a sense of purpose in the whole thing. And like, I mean, as a Christian, right, you like, I like to kind of tackle this. I'm not sure if this is the place to tackle it, but to tackle this whole thing of, as a Christian, you don't go through depression. That's not really a thing. Absolutely not. Like, I mean, I'm the living testimony of that. Absolutely not. I don't think belief in Jesus magically cures every single disease. And I don't think that belief in Jesus like gives you this magical power to not get sad and you're always happy and you're always joyful. I think Christians go through devastating incidences. Like, believing Jesus didn't stop my mum from dying in 2008. Didn't stop me from going through depression depression didn't stop me from losing my job in the church. Like this, I mean, I know it's heavy, but at the end of the day, it's like, I feel like it's an important thing to address, because a lot of people, if you got that mentality, you'll approach someone who's depressed and your advice would be like, just believe in God. Sorry, I pushed you there. But it's just
passion.
It's like just believe in God. Just have more faith. And that was quite frankly the worst advice because now you don't just feel like a bad person, you feel like a bad Christian too. Right, so I mean, when I was in that period, like, even though I believed in God, I never gave that up. You don't, like, you lose the hope. You really do. You lose the sight of God. You start to believe weird things like God doesn't really care about me. You know, you start to, where are you, God? Like, in all of this. And of course the story ends well for me, but it doesn't for everyone. We know of American pastors, these high profile figures, and forget American pastors, Australian pastors right around the corner from where we were, you know, like, I mean, I don't name names and stuff, but he was he was a friend of mine, right? I knew him, and so believing in God doesn't absolve you of these kind of things, like, and so it's really a tricky subject, but I think it's important to say that being a Christian doesn't like give you that kind of trouble-free, depressive-free life, and it kills, because a lot of people, like, they use that to say, like, oh, you know, if you believe in God and everything like that, you shouldn't be sad, you should be praying more, and you should be, and I think the worst advice that, I think I switched my microphone off for a second, sorry.
So if you turn it on, it's fine.
Okay, I turn it back on. But I mean, the worst advice that I was given during this time period was quite literally like, oh, you know, maybe it's your problem. Like, maybe you've got to have more faith. Maybe you got to believe harder, or you've got to pray more. I actually got that advice. I'm not making that up yet. Like, I actually got this kind of advice. People were actually insensitive enough to say that to me, and I feel like that's terrible. Like, because I was, you know, I've been a pastor for so long, it's very easy for me to just dismiss it, you know, like, it's just more like people that don't know what they're talking about. But if you're a youth and you get that kind of feedback, can you imagine what that's like? Imagine us telling a kid, right? Like, kids going through problems, they're sharing with us, and we're just like, oh man, I think you need to pray more. Nah, man, that's terrible, but that happens. And I think that's why believing, if you're one of those Christians that believes that, oh, you know, Jesus, if you believe in Jesus, no suffering, no pain, no hurt, like, not on this side of eternity, guys. Like, on this side of eternity, there's still plenty of pain, there's still plenty of hurt, there's still plenty of sickness that occurs there. And that's just, I'd love to be able to say that believing in Jesus kind of wipes that all away and Christians live trouble-free lives. That's just not the experience that the Bible talks about, and it's not the experience that we have either. So I don't really, I'm really passionate about that, because I think it's just,
I think sometimes just forget that, like, at the end of the day, we're just people still. We're still human beings. We still go through things. You know, it doesn't mean that, oh yeah, we're forever saved, and then boom, like nothing, right? Free life, everything's easy and chill. And I think it's just partly of that. Do you think it's just because, I guess, being in an environment that I knew that we were all in, coming like what I said earlier in the start with the whole culture thing, where they would say those things because they've never really dealt with that or spoken about that before. It's so like taboo in a sense, where they weren't brought up knowing, because they were brought up going, if it's tough, hey, I'm here, but then deal with it. Let's go. Let's keep moving. And that was culture back then, right? You deal with something, you hit a roadblock, okay, fix it. I'll support you, but you fix it. So then when it comes to this now, they're kind of like, that's how they grew up. So then when the other generation is going through it now, where we are more like expressive and we share and we talk about it, but then they don't get it. So then even if they mean well, it comes across really bad.
100%. I think we had a bit of a triple whammy in the church that I was in at the time. We were in at the time, because it was kind of like one, older generation. So again, what you were talking about, the generational difference. Two, Asian. Asian like culture. For those viewers who may not be from the Asian culture, our culture is very kind of, it's all about face. It's all about face value. It's all about respect. It's all about being, you know, dignified in what you do and everything. And so emotions and feeling are not something that we talk about a lot. We don't like expressing emotion. We don't like, I mean, the younger generation does, but the older generation, you know, they grow up very stunned, and understandably so. They had to go through the wars, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of them are refugees, you know, into this country and stuff. So, you know, migrants, refugees, whatever the background is, they had to be very strong. They had to be very stoic, and I understand where that comes from, but that did not give them room to feel depressed. They just pushed those feelings aside, and, you know, that's its own thing, but that's why they can't really relate when this generation is so expressive and and then on top of that, you've got Christian as well. And the church famously has not dealt with these issues very well because of what we just talked about, which is the whole like, if you've got Jesus, then your life should be brilliant.
Yeah.
And when you add all three of those together, yeah, I think we were in an environment that was not really conducive for emotional care and help. And that's not to, and like, I just want to make it clear, because there are some viewers here who know the church that I'm talking about. That's not to go ham on the church here. The church, in my opinion, didn't actually do anything wrong. It's just, how can you deal with something that you don't know much about? I was definitely one of the first ministers in that church to go through something like this. So when they were counseling me through it, they were dealing with new territory. And I think since then, they've learned a lot about how to deal with it, how to process it. So that's, now it's on them to kind of take that and use that well. But at the time, you can't really expect anyone to know much about that. They were kind of like, whoa, what do we do? And they kept me on payroll. They were gracious enough to keep me on payroll and to keep me staffed, even though I wasn't working. I was on the couch. I was just sitting at home, not doing anything. And that was their way of support. I think it's very Asian parent kind of thing. We'll keep funding you, and you just figure it out yourself. And that was their way of support. But I think our generation needs something
more,
a bit more. Yeah, but even though it was maybe a little bit inadequate, it wasn't their fault. Like you can't give something you don't know how to give. And I could tell they were trying to figure it out. They were saying this and saying that. And sometimes when they did say like, "Hey, maybe you should just pray more," it wasn't bad. It's not like
it had good intentions.
Yeah, it's good intentions. Yeah. So it's not to say that if you say that it's over, But what you have to understand is that now I can say that because I'm in a good spot right now. I've kind of come through that bad season, and now when I hear that, I'm like, I can see that the intentions are good, but when I was in it, you don't see that, you don't think about that, you don't hear that. All you hear is who are you to tell me something like that, right? Do you know what I'm going through? Do you even know what I'm facing? Do you know what I'm feeling? And when you're in that spot, you can be very sensitive to those kind of words,
especially because if it could come across as if like you're being told what to do,
that's it,
how to do something.
That's it. Especially if it's from someone that you trust, someone that you look up to, someone that like maybe it's a parent, man, like that doesn't understand. It could be a pastor, a parent, but if it comes from someone that you respect and someone you trust, it kills. Like it hurts, man. That kind of stuff really, really hurts.
Because I think the reason why I asked that is just, I guess, from personal experience. I've been brought up in a way where I've always in sports, and I've never really had, I guess, people like you or people to talk to when growing up. So whenever I face an issue, in my head, I'm always like, just fix it, deal with it. It's your issue, don't cry about it. I don't know whether it's just me, a stereotype thing, or just things that was around back then, but it's like, I used to think like, I'm a guy, don't cry. That's just soft, just keep going, keep pushing. So when I became a youth leader as well, that's how I kind of projected and how I cared for the guys in my cell group and the kids, because I'm like, you guys need to know, like, you need to keep pushing. You don't just stop and cry. But then being in a culture now where everything's so expressive, we want you to just show and let go. When guys started crying a lot, I was very confused. I was just like, I never cried this much, and I had to learn how to deal and understand. But then sometimes, like, I guess why I say that is because it was just too late where I couldn't really help them, and they went to other people, which sucked for me because it's like I meant well, but I just wasn't equipped because I was never in the environment to help someone that was expressing and going through that way. And dealing, like I've known a couple of people during our time where we were youth leaders or just friends in general that had similar to what you're going to, I don't think it was chronic, but I think it was definitely a proven case where it's so professionals, and times when they had those like anxiety attacks or panic moments when they freak out, like, and they came to me about it. I didn't know how to deal with it. And, like, sadly, it's not like a happy ending thing, but for them, it's like we're not friends anymore because I didn't help them the right way that I should have, because I didn't react properly because I didn't know how to. And even if I meant well, I ended up hurting the person more than actually doing good, which sucks. But I guess, that's probably just why I brought up that. Right. I mean, for you, do you have any experiences as well?
I mean, like, I think going back to what you said, like, boys in particular, I guess we need to talk about our feelings more. I just feel like it's healthy. Because like in our culture, like not even just culture as being a man. Like people don't talk about it too often.
Be a man kind of thing.
Yeah, but I feel like when boys talk about it, it's actually very wholesome and good. So I feel like what makes you more of a man to talk about your feelings. But anyways, besides the point.
It's true though. It's so
yeah,
true.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just want to, before I go into my experiences, I just want to tap into a little bit more with John. Going back to what you said about like high profiling, like ministers and stuff. Yourself being executive pastor. Yeah. I mean, because there's a misconception going around, or like a lot of misconceptions, right? People on the outside, I guess they just assume that this is like you're in a high position, so in order to talk to you, you have to be like this. You know, like, they don't realize that you go through all these things as well. Yeah. So my question is, when you're going through it, how was your faith, and like how did you? What was your relationship with God?
Yeah, not good, man. Like it really. Let's be frank, and I'm here to be honest with you guys and stuff as well. Not good.
You guys,
like
too.
I don't. Yeah, you guys too. I probably went through a period where I didn't read my Bible for like a year, maybe a year plus. Didn't do my quiet time, and not just didn't do it. I didn't want to do it. Like it was really a season of just like, stuff you, God. Like, get out of my life. Like, why would you do this to me? You know, like I had to go through, with mom and stuff like that, and then you put me on this path, and ever since I was young, I grew up in a pastoral position, very favored. The youth groups, anything that I touch tends to grow, and so to grow and grow and grow, and then all of a sudden there's kind of like, I just didn't see the cliff. It's almost I didn't see the cliff, and I was like, woo, straight down. And that's actually what happened though, and it really made me question God. Like, are you good? Like, are you there? Like, are you watching? Do you care?
Yeah.
And it really shook up my faith. Like, and that this episode is not about like how I solved that, but it really shook up my faith. It really did. And I was an exec at the time, and I was preaching, and I was teaching, and I was counseling people. I was still doing all of that, and this hit in the middle of it, and really it turned things on its head for me. I saw a side to the faith and to theology and to God that I don't think you can see unless you go through something like that. It exposed the side of the faith to me that I was like, whoa, like we're missing out on a lot of stuff. Like we really aren't as relevant as we think we are. And the church is probably not doing, and then again, this is not targeted at a church, because I visited multiple churches in my time away, like when I stepped down, but the church is probably not doing as good a job as they think they're doing. And this issue is a real issue, and we're probably not tackling it as effectively as we think we are. So it really shook my faith. It took me probably double the time, probably 2 years to build up to a point where I think God had to lead me by the hand and show me, like, actually this is what I was doing. Like, and obviously there's stuff there was stuff in my life that I had to kind of work out with myself. There's probably a lot of pride in my life that God really had to kind of show me, hey, you got to let loose of that. Like, there was a lot of unrealistic expectations in my life with regards to church and ministry. It was just like, it's all straight and the world's all great and the world's positive and you have to be good and you have to be holy and everything like that. And then when God breaks you, or when you get broken, or God leads you through that experience of brokenness, whatever your theology allows you to say, like, that's when you realize, no, the world's a very broken place, and God has called us to like be a part of the broken world in that sense. Like, brokenness it's humanity. We are broken. And I guess exposing me to that gave me a side to my theology, which is my belief in God. Sorry, I keep saying theology, it's like belief in God. It's much more grace-filled. You see a person who's fallen, you see a person who's struggling with that, you don't just be like, pray more. Like you don't. You can't. I could not. Like, I could not. I would. No way. That's impossible now. But before, even though I probably wouldn't, because of cultural sensitivity, I wouldn't put it past me to think it. But now when I see it, there's no way that I would. So I take it as God raising ministers, and if I do go back into ministry one day, God raising ministers that actually understand the needs of right now. And how mental health is such a big thing now. So I see the purpose now, but back then, man, no, my faith took a huge hit. Like, I questioned everything that I ever heard, everything that I ever believed, from, is God good, all the way to is God even real? Like, I questioned all of it. I went back to my books. I went back to my apologetics. I really, that really shook me up. That took me for a real ride. So just because you're in that kind of, that doesn't mean anything, guys. That's just a title. That's just a few letters behind your name. No man is ever just great because they've got a title. No matter how much they're earning, no matter how many people are following them. We're all just people.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. We're all just humans. Anyways.
Yeah.
No, but thanks for sharing that, because I feel like a lot of people just, I guess they just preemptively think that about leaders and people in general, which makes harder for them to approach us in the first place, or like people in
Yeah,
those high
yeah.
positions to talk about these things.
Yep.
But you should never be too scared, because
No.
people are people.
That's it.
Yeah.
People know people, right?
And if you do have a leader that's too good to talk to, find someone else. Like,
Yeah.
Find another
Yeah,
leader.
start
that
small.
actually-
Yeah.
Start, dude.
Go to
Start,
Sunday school. Or
yeah, absolutely.
I know.
Find someone that there's always someone you can talk to. Yeah, like there's always someone.
Yeah,
if not,
yeah.
hit us up in the comments, and one of
Oh,
us will reply.
okay.
Yeah, I'll put you guys
Yeah,
out there. You know, 'cause
comment.
I know that these guys care. So
Yeah, why
yeah,
not?
absolutely.
Yeah. Hashtag
absolutely.
humans. No,
We have
okay. Yeah.
fair share. I mean, going back to Nick's question to me,
Yeah.
which was like one of my personal experiences with it, and I guess it's like the same for all of us here, is that we've been on the other side of it all, and I guess like kind of being the input, but then there's no one to output it to, and I guess I found myself in certain days where I just wouldn't understand why I feel so restless, or like, and I guess anxious in a sense,
Yeah.
but it's like nothing wrong with me, but I just feel like I guess a lot of the time, like the stuff that we deal with is actually pretty heavy, and like without the proper training and being equipped properly, it can be very detrimental to your own mental health. So that's where I learned, like, I gotta like talk to my mentor, which is John. I talk to like other leaders, and like, that helped me personally. But like just saying that, yeah, like sometimes I wouldn't be able to explain why I feel a certain way, and I feel like not necessarily I have mental illness, but it's just because it carries on, because there's nowhere for it to go. The saying's better out than in. If you have a fart or a burp, it's better if you let it out, because if you have a build up, it's not pretty, right? Hey, let's be real, okay? Like, I'm trying to make it like, that's an analogy for me,
Yeah.
right?
Wow. That's brilliant, bro. But yeah.
But anyways, but yeah, man, like, and I would say that the people that I've helped through this or journeyed with, I guess they would still be challenged by it till today. It doesn't just go away, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that, we've had some tough times. It wasn't easy supporting. I feel like it's good to be there for the person, but you got to make sure you got to look out for yourself as well, because it's some heavy stuff that, going through, like, always trying to encourage them, and like them not taking the encouragement in and bouncing it off. And that is very discouraging. And to find the perseverance and all that to keep going with them, it's hard, man. There are times where I'm like counseling someone, and I just want to give up. Like, honestly, like they'll just be like negative again. There was this one person that I was working with quite closely, like in my last 2 years of leading a Connect group. And they're a lovely person, right? But it's just like, there are just times where their negativity just rubbed off on me, and I was just like, man, like, you know what? I don't know what to say anymore. I just kind of want to, give up. But, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, it is tough. Either way, I feel like, whether you're going through it yourself or you're supporting them. But, we just need good support network kind of thing. But yeah, anyways, they're still dealing with it now and stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's, I guess, one final thing I wanted to talk about before we close off today was just, it's not something that just goes away. I guess, especially for your version, for example, it's like chronic, right? So it's just things that you just live with. Yeah. And it's not something that would just go away. If I'm not wrong. Yeah. And it's just like, I guess I want to ask, just like, how would you, I guess, manage it from now on? How you now compared to you were like years ago? Because I guess we also don't really ask that. But also just in terms of, I guess, for people now, like for us, let's say if we're trying to help you or anyone else, how should we kind of like do that?
That's a big question, man.
But we ask big things here.
I'll put it this way. I think whenever someone puts a label on you, you do have to be careful. It's like when they say chronic depression, it's like, I know that's just a term so we can kind of understand what's going on, but at the same time, it's a label. Like, it's a label. I don't like to take labels too seriously, but at the same time, it's always a factor. So you always believe, it is something that I'm dealing with, and I understand that it's something I'm going to have to learn how to manage. It's not something that I just, flick my fingers and then the next day it's gone. That's not what it is. So I understand that. But at the same time, to continue labeling yourself as something, it eventually works its way into your identity. You just start to believe that's you. You're just depressed now. You're the depressed dude. And that becomes who you are. And that's not good as well. So you definitely don't want to do that. But look, I definitely say professional help is important. I would say if you're going through something like this, don't be a hero. Don't champion yourself and just think, oh, my mates will help me out at this and stuff. Because you may have really good mates, but one, they're not trained, and two, they're not always there. Whereas a professional counselor, these guys are trained. They actually know how to talk to you. They know the questions to ask. They know the stuff to send you home with. They know, the contact information. And, I've been told that we can kind of superimpose. There's contact information. If you need help from certain people, or if you want to talk to someone, then, the links are, I don't know, here somewhere or somewhere here.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I got banned.
That can happen, bro.
There's companies like Lifeline that do such a good job, Beyond Blue, Headspace, and then these are all Western Australian, but for our more international viewers or national viewers, I think that there may be other organizations.
Our media guy got it.
There'll be stuff around, but you can Google it. Like this stuff, you can Google it and you can find this kind of information. But basically, look, I think that if you are really worried about it and you're serious about it, go and talk to a professional. Don't just keep talking to your friends, because man, these guys give good advice. They're youth leaders and stuff, but your friends, they may not be, like, honestly, even if you do have a youth leader, definitely talk to them, let them know so they can talk to you about it, keep you company, help you out. But they're not professionals. You have to understand that professionals are different. Like
I just want to add on, just chime in, because we may give good advice, but like going back to like what Nick said, like he didn't know how to deal with it at the time. Like, it's good that you talk to your leaders. Let's say you're in a youth group now, you're talking to your leader, but like what John's saying, I highly suggest that you go see a professional, or if you're a leader dealing with this, direct them to a professional, because it's going to put stress on you as well. And if you tell them the wrong thing, then who knows, that's on you, because
and I think it's like another perspective that I want to come from. If you, let's say, are that friend that's helping, like where I was in that position, I think the best thing you can actually do is, I guess, one, like just read up. If you know you have a friend or someone's close to you that's dealing with it, just learn more about it, right? But it is not so, and you could also do is just support them in a different way. For example, if they're scared of going to the counseling session, go with them. That's helping them still,
absolutely.
like when they come to you for help, it doesn't mean that they want you to help them. Yes, you can listen, yes, you can go through and walk with them through it, but you don't have to be the solution. Because I guess for me, when I didn't do a really good job and it affected that person a lot, the guilt kind of like went on me a lot, and it hammered me down a lot. And it took a long time for me to move past that. But I think what I learned from that is just, okay, I should have just read more about it, understand it a little bit better. But also help them and support them go through the counseling.
That's it. Like I'll shout out two people here. I'll shout out my best mate who at the time he was working in Deloitte, and he was really concerned about me. And so during his free hours at work, he'd call up Lifeline and just ask like, hey, how do I talk to him and stuff like that. That means the world to someone going through a situation like that. A friend that can do that. Your support, like, yes, there's the professional support network, but you have to have your social support network. You have to have your friends around you. You gotta have people like that. I'll shout out again, like one of my favorite youth pastors, a guy called James Cho. And he might be on the show one day. He's a good dude. Shout out to Cho.
See you soon, boy.
Seriously, Cho did exactly what you said, which was when there's like a kid who's going through something, he would drive that kid to Headspace, every single week,
100%.
like time and time again. And it's like that means a lot. That does something. That makes a difference. People like that are making a difference. So you have to have a good support network. And perhaps this is where I kind of stuffed up a little bit. Like I kind of pushed away my support network a little bit in the early phases. That was a big mistake. But thank God that I had the professional network kind of like to help me. But yeah, you definitely do those things. That is so important. But then I think you go back to the basics, which is what we were talking about earlier. Like fix your routine, man. Fix your basics, your sleep, your eat, that kind of stuff. Get a routine going, because it gives you something to do. It gives you something to look forward to. It gives you it makes you feel more human. That sounds weird, but if you're going through it, it's going to make sense. Like it just makes you feel more human. It makes you feel more normal. Like talk to people about it whenever you can, but fix the basics. Your eating, your sleeping. Like, I can't stress that enough. Talk to people. I like journaling. Get into the habit of journaling, because again, that's an output. That's you writing stuff down. It's you getting stuff out, like feelings out of there. It helps you to process. Just right. If you saw my journal from that time, it's a thick journal, man. Like I used to write for hours, just going like, this is what I'm feeling. I write the same thing like 5 times, but it's just an output of what you're feeling. If you're a musician, sing music. It may be a little bit darker, but at least it's an output. You're getting stuff out there. And then watch what you intake. It's a basic principle of life, right? Intake, output, right? It's like whatever you're intaking, careful of the stuff that you're listening listening to. But also careful of the friends that you hang around, you
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah.
your
Definitely.
friends could be really toxic. And
Yeah.
just be
True.
really careful. They may be encouraging you and spurring you on. Like I remember one of my kids telling me this once. My youth kids.
No, his actual kids.
I don't actually
We
have
wish.
kids. But like one of the youth kids was telling me, you know, they went onto like a bulletin board where they were just trying to like kind of get a bit of sympathy from people who, you know, were going through this kind of stuff. And they're just surprised and shocked at how cruel these people on the board were. Like they were like, nah, do it, go and off yourself and stuff like that. You don't deserve to be depressed. You're not going through. And I was like, what in the world? Are you serious? You know, so you really have to be careful about your inputs,
Yeah.
whether it's a social input or a media input and stuff like that. Be careful what you read. Be careful what you listen to. Like I honestly made it a point to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you know, just
so good.
I just left it on a loop. And How I Met Your Mother, like two of the
so
best sitcoms of all time, you know, like I just left it on loop when I was there, and I'm not listening to it all the time, but at least it's not negative,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
at least it's not too heavy. At least I definitely wouldn't put like 13 Reasons Why.
No
like,
way.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
loop that, you know, that's asking
That's
for trouble.
heavy.
Yeah.
I put Brooklyn Nine-Nine on, and you just like listen to it. You have a bit of a chuckle here and there. Parks and Rec,
chuckle.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you know, these are great,
Parks and
great,
Rec.
hilarious. And do you know what? So this is gonna sound sad, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. They almost become like friends to you. Like when you watch them and you just see them on the screen that much, you almost kind of like familiarize with them. It actually helps. There is a part of you that actually feels almost like it's a safe space because these guys are there.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
it sounds sad. I
No, I
know
get
it does,
that. Yeah, yeah.
but it's a thing. Like it's a,
Yeah.
and at least these guys are kind of funny and they're joking around, and life that's depicted there seems a bit more light and a bit happier, and it just gives you a little bit more hope, a little
Yeah.
bit, a bit of a
Yeah.
comfortable, safe space, which I guess is the last piece of advice. You have to have a safe space.
Yeah.
You have to find that. You have to make it. You have to do whatever you can to build that safe space, whether it's around a person, whether it's a place, an actual geographical place. You actually have to build that safe space. You have to find that safe space. You have to stick to that. Because if you don't have a safe space, if it's not a safe space at home, if it's not a safe space at church or with your, you know, sports clubs or something like that, if you don't have that space, you are going to really burn out quickly.
Yeah.
Like you're going to find out, man, I'm so tired. Wherever I go, whoever I talk to, I just don't feel safe. Find a safe space, yeah, like really, really quickly. So yeah, I reckon that's just, those are some things. I mean, we can talk about this forever, yeah, seriously, because this is a big topic, and you know, if you want to talk more about it, I'm sure you can like,
Yeah,
hit
we'll
the
just
comments
bring-
below.
we'll bring
or
John back
whatever.
on
No,
again.
but I hit the comments below, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
I got a YouTube account. I can reply some comments, but like if you want to talk more about it and like find someone good to talk about it. These guys are great people to talk about it, engage with them, but at the same time, like, you know, we can cover this forever. These are just the basics, like the real basics. I think that anyone going through this stuff, you should seek. But then, just call if you really got no one to talk to, comment below, call the number, man. Like seriously, it helps.
We'll
It
put
really
it in the
helps.
description just to help a little bit. But I think, I guess just, do you have anything to add before I close it off?
No.
Okay,
that's all
well,
good.
you know, we appreciate you, John, for sharing. I know it's not really easy and it's really deep. And
We
it's
also
really
want to
hard
thank you for making the time to come on the show today.
Yeah, I know we
Yeah.
like mumbling a lot. And for all of you guys, we hope you got something out of that. And just know, like, we're all people too. We all stuff up too. We all go through things. And it's just help one another, you know, positive vibes. Like Jara said, party people.
Party people
Stay together, right? Okay. And like, you know, go through the ups together, go through the downs together. And I know we can't physically be there for you guys, but I think this is the space you want to bring. And wherever you go to, just, I guess, DM us. If commenting's too public, just DM and we'll just try to help you out, say something nice.
Absolutely.
A joke, maybe even anything.
Nick's got jokes.
I got jokes.
Give him a joke.
Okay,
No, good
well,
jokes, but yeah.
I'll say one that I said to these people before, where it was like, what did the fish say when it swam into a wall? Damn.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, and so we hope you guys enjoyed this deeper version of our podcast. We hope you got something out of it. Show John some love. Give us some likes, comments, reshares. You know, remember to ring that bell when we get the next guest on and the next topic on as well. And have a good time. Stay
Look after
fresh.
yourselves.
Yeah.
And stay
Look after
fresh.
yourselves, guys.
All right. See
Thank
you
you
guys.
again, John.